Welcome to the Service MVP Podcast. This is where you go to learn how to use pure motive service to create higher value to grow your results. And now, here is your host, America's service sales coach, Joe Crisara.
Welcome to the Service MVP Podcast. My name is Joe Crisara, America's service sales coach. And today we have a very special guest. His name is George Colon from iComfort. Hey, George, how you doing today?
I'm doing well.
George, tell us a little bit about your background. And I want people to know about this guy because of all the people I met in Los Angeles who do heating and air conditioning, George is one of the most innovative and persistent and hard-grinding people I know. George, tell us a little bit about how you got started in the heating and air conditioning business with iComfort.
How I got started in the industry was I was fresh out of high school and I needed a job. I had a kid. I actually had two kids at the time already, and started back in June of 1995, and here I am 30 years later. But yeah,
that's a short story. That's a good short version. Well, iComfort, definitely whenever somebody asks me, hey, who would you call if you had to solve this problem? I'd say I'd call George Colon because he'll come out, or Corey or one of his people come out and get this thing done right in this area. So tell us a little bit about the history of the company. You've been around for how long in this company now?
20 years. We started it back in January of 2004.
2004.
Yeah.
And then one of the things you told me is about the revenue. The revenue was stuck at a certain point. Tell us about that, about how for 15 years you were kind of grinding at the similar revenue. What was that like?
So yeah, for those first 15 years, there was, 4-6 of us out there working. We're probably right around $1 million, $1.5 million. And we were stuck there. Yeah.
And then you started going to the format where you give options, right? You start, instead of giving ultimatums, you start giving options.
Yeah.
And what happened? So that was about 2020, you said, where that kind of got started, right? 2021?
Yeah, 2020, I think I came across one of your videos on social media or something, and a couple people suggested we see you, and we jumped on that and learned how to give options and learned how to check systems as a whole and come up with solutions.
So if you look at it 4 or 5 years later, what is the growth from that 1.5 million?
So now we're at about 4.5 million.
A 4.5?
Yeah.
About to approach 5. This year is it going to be 5?
That's what we're shooting for. So.
Well, that's what we're going to do. We're going to do it together though, okay?
Cool. Yeah.
That's okay. Let's talk about, the pure motive process though. One thing I know is that you connecting with people has always been a strength. Would you agree with that when you saw what we teach, that the pure motive service and the getting to make a friend with your client? Tell us about how important the connection with your client is when it comes to the process of the pure motive service that you've learned.
I think it's the most important part of it. And I think that's why when we got with you, it came easy because the connection, we were already doing that. That's the most important thing in my eyes.
So you had the asset of creating relationships with people. You just weren't able to harvest that asset. Is that fair way to say that?
Yep, that's exactly.
But today now, you and I'm confident that you and I were taught by parents that were similar, where they said, George, stand up straight and wear your belt right. And, is that fair? I don't know your dad or anything like that, but is it true that your dad and your parents were more like, George, get it together?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Stand up when you shake someone's hand, look people in the eye when they're talking to you.
Right.
Yep. Exactly.
But how about the kids of today? When you get these new employees, what's it like when you see the employees of today?
It could be a challenge sometimes, actually, a lot of times.
I always said the heating and air conditioning business is a kind of a paternal business, that in a way, the person who's run the company is sort of like the uncle. That's why the Uncle Joe moniker came, because it's like, in a way, I'm kind of being a family member who's kind of getting them straightened out here a little bit. Do you ever feel that there's more than just heating and cooling that you're teaching people?
Absolutely. I think that I have a love for the game of baseball. I look at it like coaching, and I start there when we onboard and bring new people on, talk about customer service, everything that goes with the customer service part first. Yeah, I see it as coaching.
And of course, you're a Los Angeles Dodgers fan, right?
100%.
Right. So, well, you've had some really good coaches, and I remember back in my day, Walter Alston and Tommy Lasorda, and some of the people even today, they're really good coaches and and people who are, have a conversation, and they kind of do it the Dodger way in a way. Whether you're successful like Mookie Betts and he comes to the Dodgers, he turns into something different when he comes to the Dodgers. And young kids who come from the farm system, they turn into something different. Truthfully, it seems they seem indistinguishable from each other to seek to create that culture where we have the iComfort way. How important is that?
It's important.
What do you do to uphold that standard, though? I mean, it's a high standard, the iComfort way or the Dodger way. Is it done with a carrot or the stick? How do you get that done?
Well, I'm more the carrot. Erica's more the stick. So here's we gotta find that balance. But I just think doing things within the office, from team events, barbecues, things like that, and you start doing that, and that new onboardee sees that, and they kind of start falling into place, and they like this culture, and it's good.
There's an iComfort way that the employees relate to you now about making options, diagnosing the whole system, all the rest of it there, and all the other things that you and Erica believe in. But has that permeated to the clients too? Do you feel the clients feel a sense of family or care, respect, and support as well? Tell me about that.
Absolutely. You know what? It's actually rewarding when I hear from a client that calls to the office or gets in touch with me, and they'll say like, this kid was a mirror image of you, and they reminded me a lot of you. And I think it just goes back to that coaching at the beginning. First, we talk about customer service and treat these people right, do what's right for the customer at all times. And they carry that, our technicians carry that onto the field.
But I guess when you show that you take care of the technicians, it's easy for them to show that same care to the clients at that point.
Exactly.
Sound fair? So let's talk a little bit about how iComfort has adopted the Pure Motive kind of total immersion system in a way, and made it your own. I know everybody takes the information, and it's not exactly the way we teach it. They do their own variations of it, but I'm really happy to hear some of the innovations that you've done, and taking the material and grown with it yourself and taking the lead on it. So one of the things is obviously make the friend. You're already there with that. And I think that's really great. So the magic moments and being complimentary to customers is something that iComfort already had in the DNA. So that we didn't have to teach that. It made it easy to work with you in that regard. I was excited to work with you because of that. Then diagnosing the whole system. I know that I'm a stickler from a technical standpoint when it comes to every trade, that let's learn how to do everything right and look at the whole process, the whole system, rather than just the one solution. Have you been able to achieve that with iComfort to make sure that not just the problem, but what caused the problem and the core element of the problem?
Right. And what could come down the road if you don't check the entire system. So
you think that's more of a motivator, that what could happen if you don't do the whole thing?
You know what? I've talked to some of our techs before, and I've asked them, and they just said, like, I hate to say it like this, but what they say is, we don't want to let you down, because they know how if we ever have a callback, yes, inside I'm like burning up and I'm angry, but I talk to them all the time about, hey, these people don't want to have us in their house twice. People don't want to have to hear this issue happened because we didn't check it a week ago when we were here. So I just, it starts with being thorough with your job. And then, if you're going out there and you're diagnosing something, after you get the system back up and running, be thorough with the system and check everything else and make sure that we're not going to have an issue down the road.
So there's two things that can be true at the same time. One, diagnosing the problem and the system that may have caused the problem is something that will benefit the client and benefit the company, because now there's no callbacks, and the relationship stays stronger because you're competent and people see that, because wow, they solved no problem. And then the other thing that can be true is that the client winds up investing more money into their safety and health and quality and reliability. Is that true too? Those two things are true at the same time?
Absolutely. That's exactly it.
So how important is it how do you hold the line on that whole system diagnosis? Is there something you guys do to make sure that people live up to that standard about is there an iComfort way to diagnose? And how much training do you do on that element of things?
So we meet every morning from 7 to 7:30 in the morning, and we just go over yesterday's calls, what everyone saw, what they came across, and what their process was. But during the day, we're taking phone calls from our technicians. And within 30 minutes, we want to start seeing pictures, or we want to hear from them on what their findings are. Once they call and say, hey, this is what we found, and we'll ask them, okay, have you checked this, and that, and don't forget to, go through the whole system and make sure everything's right. And again, before they leave, they call Corey or myself and let us know where they finished off. And yeah.
So it sounds like you have a closed loop communication system. So I want everybody to kind of look at this and just say this to yourself, that George is meeting every single morning with the service technicians and getting a report about what happened yesterday and the process they took to get there. And then, George, I assume you're coaching them just like the Dodgers coach would do, or trainer would do on, hey, tell me how you swing the bat, or let's go back and look at the videotape about how you swing that bat. You're doing the same thing, though, with heating and air conditioning people. And show me how you swing the bat on that one. And you're finding that there's ways you can improve it. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. And it's not only me, it's Corey as well, because sometimes I may not be there. And Corey, runs that meeting in the morning.
And you have your son, Georgie, too. Does he help other people too?
Yeah. Georgie's there. He's one of our techs, and just like everyone else, he's got to call in. He's got to talk to Corey. He's got to talk to myself. And oftentimes it's not that we're having an issue, and that's why we're going over the whatever it was from the day before, but it's so that the other techs hear what the process was, the process we took.
They all learn from each other.
In
a way, they're coaching each other. You're just kind of facilitating the thing, and they're teaching. When somebody says what they did and it was good, everybody can kind of learn from that.
Correct.
But it's every morning. How long does that last for?
45 minutes.
So 30, 45 minutes of that communication. How invaluable is that? How much money do you think that saves you a year by doing it that way, as opposed to saying, let's meet once a month or once a week? How even though it's an investment in 30 minutes,
right?
And it costs money to have all these people come in. In California, you can't just have people come in for free.
Right.
So it's an investment for that 30, 45 minutes. Does that investment pay off? How much money do you think that would save you over a year if you didn't do it? If you didn't meet it all, for instance, what would you say there?
Yeah, I don't even know that I look to put a dollar amount on it. I just look at the headache that it's saving me. I don't want to have customers calling from, or the dispatch team calling saying, hey, this customer called, their stuff's not working, this is happening over there. That's the way I look at it. But if we want to look at it dollar wise, then I'm going to think about how much money, how much revenue is it bringing in, because we're being thorough through, through checking the entire system.
You're not doing callbacks when you could be doing an actual customer who needs help at that point, not somebody who you're doing again the second time. Now you're able to do somebody else the first time. Your schedule doesn't get clogged up with recalls as opposed to new customers. Is that fair?
That's absolutely. And the other thing, one of the things that I tell the guys is, when you thoroughly check a system and out of that, system check, you're able to put options together, you're covering your butt. Think about a technician who goes out to a house, they hook up their gauges and say, oh, the system's low in refrigerant. And then they go pump refrigerant in, they leave, they never check static pressure, they didn't check airflow, they didn't check filters. And 2 weeks later, the homeowner calls and says, hey, it's still not cooling, still not doing. Someone else goes up there, hooks up their gauges, looks like it's low in refrigerant again, but the technician goes in and checks airflow, and they find that the problem is airflow and not refrigerant. Now you got to go explain that to the homeowner. And what do they say? How come your tech 2 weeks ago didn't say that?
Right.
Why didn't they bring that up? And now it's hard to justify that.
It's one of the most heartbreaking things when the customer loves your company, but they tell you they're going to have to use somebody else because they don't trust that you know what you're doing.
Exactly.
That's heartbreaking, isn't it? When you put so much heart into this, the same thing happens here at Service MVP. If somebody says something wrong, it's like, you know what, I like you and I like what we're doing. I just got to find something else though, because I don't trust one of the employees or whatever that said something to me. It's heartbreaking. Let's move on to something more pleasant though, the solutions, because people tell me, how do you come up with all these solutions? How important is the diagnosis and finding more problems, or the problem, the infrastructure problem, the safety and health problem, the service problem? So if you're good at diagnosing all those things, how does that impact the ability of technicians to make solutions? If you don't do that stuff with finding the problems, how does that affect the ability to make solutions?
If you're not thoroughly checking a system, it's gonna impact it a lot.
In what way? Tell me about that.
You're just gonna have callbacks. Even if the callback is not what you worked on that specific day, it's something else that's gonna break down, whatever, a month later, and you're gonna have that negative impact with, that negative. You're gonna leave that bad taste in that customer's mouth.
If we found the problem, we naturally have an obligation to do what then, George? If we do find these extra problems beside the one they called us for,
present them to the homeowner.
all the solutions, right?
On the solutions.
So people always say, if technicians have a hard time, how are my technicians going to come up with all these solutions? I always say, well, they have to come up with all the problems at the same time. Does that make sense?
Right.
Because problems, as many problems as you find, that's the amount of solutions you're going to find. Does it make sense? Tell us about the impact of the options. Now let's move toward the options, because that is the thing. Would you say that's the thing because you were already probably diagnosing the whole system before you met me? Was that say it's fair?
Yeah.
So you're kind of doing that red carpet diagnosis.
Yeah. I mean, I came up in a different time where, to an extent, it was performance based or book time. You fixed it right, or you were going back on your own time. So there was some accountability when I came up as a technician.
So a lot of technicians under that way start doing some stuff for free because they don't want to charge the guy. They don't know how to charge him.
Exactly.
So they wind up doing that and doing a little bit more for free. Well, that stuff could have been charged for that's where the options come to play, I feel, right? Because before, a technician's like, I'm performance based, I can't afford a callback, so I'm just going to run that extra pipe or put the extra valve in. Who's going to know? And those are things that should have been charged for.
Right.
Now with the options, those things can be charged for, and people do purchase those, right? Would you agree with that?
I 100% agree with that.
So let's talk about that part of it then. How important, just like the culture of diagnosing the whole system and making a friend are two things that you live by, are the options something you live by?
Yeah. Absolutely.
You were just telling me about in Los Angeles, because now we had these fires, this tragedy of the fires that happened recently, that is one of the things that have impacted solutions. And you said for years you've been chasing air quality and running ads, and didn't seem like anything was happening. Tell us the change that happened this year with that.
Yeah. So just in the last couple of weeks, it's impacted our business a lot. Everybody wants better filtration, better air purification. Everyone's asking about HEPA filters. And, explaining that how a HEPA filter works in a residential system has become a coaching thing in the office, to our technicians. But it's impacted our business a lot. And there's a lot of that product moving,
Back when I lived in Chicago, it was like I remember a whole family died of carbon monoxide poisoning, and then all of a sudden everybody was like, we need our heat exchanger checked.
Right.
And it was a big thing now. Before we were advertising check your heat exchanger for years, and all of a sudden it took a tragedy to do that, unfortunately. But let's talk about the options on air quality. So now you told me that now you got to the point where it's normalized, where you kind of institutionally have created these options. Tell me a little bit about that and how it's changed, how you make it easy to do business for your technicians on that.
The options for indoor air quality have always been in our price book. Mm-hmm. But to make it easier for our technicians, what I did was I basically put the 4 options on a sheet, laminated it with prices, images, and what each product does, and basically the technician just turns that thing over, shares it with a homeowner that's interested in IAQ, and they just pick.
So you get the top 4 options bundled up, and then you got the rest of them where you can say, well, here's the minimum we could do, is the bottom, but individual things that could be done. So the technician would choose the thing that would be the minimum option, one with the agreement. So there's 6 options still, 4 that are the bundled ones, and then 2 that would be individual ones that we could just at least get this done type of thing. Does that make sense?
Right. So it's actually 8 options if we look at it that way. So on the front of the page, there's 4 options that include HEPA filtration, a high MERV rating filtration, an air purifier. We like to use Dynamics RM2 system, and then a pan strip. And then from there, I take the HEPA filter out, and on the backside, there's the 4 products individually.
So now you could just say which one. Let's just go to one of these at least. And here's how much it would be if you just did one of them. Why don't we just get started with that? Right?
Exactly. There's a lot of homes out there that already have good filtration, but they have no air purification.
You're missing one of those 4 elements.
Exactly. So that's why it's individually.
So in a way, you made it easy for the technician to say, here's what we at iComfort have recommended, or the signature solution, I always call it, the George and Erica signature solution in a way. And then everybody kind of knows what you endorse. And that's a culture creator too, because now that everybody knows we're on the same page, as nobody's creating outlandish or minimal things.
Right.
They're doing the same thing. So how is that consistency of those options being presented like that? How has that helped the customer make a decision? Have you noticed that people now purchase it a lot easier compared to before you just push one product? Like, I recommend this pan, strip or whatever.
Right.
And now it's like, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Now it's like you're giving them options. How has that impacted the client's ability to decide?
It's made it a lot easier for the client to decide, and it's made it a lot easier for our technician to present, because it's just on a laminated sheet. They pass, they hand over to the homeowner, because every homeowner we're walking into right now is asking for better filtration. And then from there, the guys are saying, well, you just want filtration, or are you talking about air purification? What is it that we're trying to address here? And well, the odors. Well, most filters are not going to do much with with the odors. If you want to address the odors, here's some options, and and so on and so forth. So
interesting. With that being said, bringing it to a conclusion now, how much work do you guys do on the communication of like the methodology behind the what should we do? Getting people to actually make a choice and get the job done, and because doing all the stuff you're talking about, making a friend, diagnosing the system, showing them the options, it's all great. But if nobody buys it or nobody moves forward with it, how important is that you guys practice? How much practice do you do in that element of things?
We do a lot of practice. Eric is a stickler for getting on your website and watching the videos and making sure that the guys are on that.
Well, if Erica would be our quality control representative, that would be it's pretty high praise. If Erica Cologne likes our material, that is high praise for sure. You tell her I said thank you for that. No doubt she can watch it on the video if she wants to. What would you like to say to your clients about the way iComfort feels about them and the way you try to do things for them? Tell me, like if you were speaking to your client, if he was here right now, what would you say to your clients about why iComfort is really the best solution for them?
I think because since day one, I've cared, and I think our team, everybody there in the office, the field staff, they know I care, and they basically follow that lead. I really do care for every one of the customers that I go in, and that's why I'm in the trenches every day. People will say, "Why are you still out there? Why do you still go out, make house visits, and go check up on your guys?" And it's because I care, and I think I don't know how else to put it, but that way.
Do you love heating and cooling?
I love what I do. Yeah, I love what I do.
You love this business?
I love this business. I love it so much, I actually went and got my C10, and now I'm an electrical contractor as well.
Whoa, you're expanding your solution.
I'm expanding my solutions, getting more options in play here.
Well, good. George, thank you for joining me here today. Any final things you want to say before we wrap it up?
No, just I want to thank you for all your help over the years and helping us get to where we're at, and your continued assistance in getting our guys trained and up to speed.
Well, great. Well, as you guys know, I fell in love with your company the day I met you guys, so it was an easy one. It's a mutual admiration society, they call that. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you on the internet next time.